Is everybody in? Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin.
Hey, welcome to part 2 of Walking in the Footsteps of the Doors with the tie-dyed traveling guy and Catfish Billy. I hope you enjoyed part 1. If you haven't seen it yet, be sure you check out part 1 of Walking in the Footsteps of the Doors, where we travel to 61 locations in West Hollywood and Hollywood. In this video, we start out with 3 honorable mentions in downtown Los Angeles before we head west to Santa Monica, to Venice Beach, and we head south to Marina Del Ray, where we finish at the location of what was the Doors Beach House. This unrecognizable building is the Morrison Hotel at 1246 South Hope Street. This is where the Doors shot their album cover for 1970, the Morrison Hotel. Ray and Dorothy were driving around downtown one day, saw this hotel, thought it would be great for a photo shoot, so they brought Henry Diltz down here. They walked in, they talked to the person that was at the front desk, asked if they could take some pictures at the hotel, and that person said, no, you cannot take pictures here without the owner's permission. So while the front desk person went in the elevator, went upstairs, the Doors ran in there super fast, took some pictures inside, outside, by the front door, by the iconic window, in and out super fast. After the Doors were done shooting some photos over at the Morrison Hotel, they got a little thirsty. Specifically, Jim wanted to go have some beers, so they cruised over to this place over at 300 East 5th Street, downtown, which sadly is in a very poor neighborhood. Encampments, homeless, violent crime, drug abuse. So we did not physically go to this location. It was on our list. We wanted to honor the location. The Doors took a lot of photos in here for their Morrison Hotel album inside cover. And they just hung out. They had some beers. They talked to the locals. One of these guys asked for money or something like that. And Jim said, you have to earn it. So he earned it by, I believe, saying he had the loudest whistle. And it was loud. And gave him some money. And so they had some fun. You can see they have smiles on their faces. They had some beers, took some photos. And because of these photos, the founder and originator of the now Hard Rock Cafe took the name from the Doors' Morrison Hotel album. So you could almost give credit to the Doors, or I guess maybe even the owner of this Hard Rock Cafe, of inspiring the founder of the current Hard Rock Cafe that we all know and love. All happened, was named because of this Morrison Hotel photo shoot, these albums, inside, outside, by themselves, by locals. Next time when we do have a rental car, we at the very least want to drive past this neighborhood. But we were told by multiple people, do not go into the Skid Row area, not even during the day. So as the saying goes, safety first. We have to think of ourselves. We have to think of our safety. We don't want anything to happen to us, especially when we're carrying around expensive phones. Here is one more location that we didn't physically make it to because it is in downtown Los Angeles in the Skid Row area, very near the encampments, the IV drug use, the homelessness. Everything that's going on down there, it's just not a good situation right now. But I did want to give a shout out to the La Golondrina Cafe, because this is where Ray Manzarek and the newly Dorothy Manzarek went after they had gotten married on December 21st, 1967. Jim and Pam were witnesses at the courthouse in Los Angeles, and then they went to this Mexican restaurant for some margaritas. Right here at the corner of Vista Grande Street and Hammond Street, Ray Manzarek and his wife Dorothy bought their first house with their first royalty check. And when Ray received that royalty check, it said $50,000, and he thought that was to be divided between the four of them. But then Jack had said, "No, Ray, that's all for you." So Ray and Dorothy took that $50,000 and they bought a house for $49,500. And I'm not sure exactly which house it is, whether it is 9002 or if it is 8972. I took this location out of Ray's book, and all it said was the corner of Vista Grande and Hammond Street. And when they bought this house in 1967 from that first royalty check, you know, 2 bedrooms, it had a swimming pool, a paneled living room, a newly remodeled kitchen, and a fish pond. Corner of Vista Grande and Hammond. So this would have been mid to late 1967 into 68 that Ray Manzarek and Dorothy Manzarek Fujikawa lived at one of these two houses. So if anyone has any information about specifically which house it is on the corner of Vista Grande and Hammond, it would be much appreciated. So now we're going to continue to head west towards Santa Monica and Venice. 9081 Santa Monica Boulevard. We have the Troubadour. Not only did Guns N' Roses play their very first show here back in 1985, 86, I don't know the exact date. Some of you Guns N' Roses fans may know that. But I'm here because this was one of Jim Morrison's hangouts for a period of time until they kicked him out, and then he came back and they kicked him out again due to his late night antics, and was later permanently banned from entering the club, although that never stopped him from trying. So not only was this a hangout for Jim, but in the late 1970s, Ray Manzarek's band Night City played a series of gigs here as well. Robbie Krieger's band Redshift also played here, and then in the 1980s, both Ray and Robbie were known to sit in with various bands for late night jams at the Troubadour. 2 songs from one of Ray's sit-ins with the Knack at the Troubadour, Soul Kitchen and Alabama Song, were released on the album But the Little Girls Understand. Alright, y'all. A lot of bands. I know Cheech and Chong were here, and the Eagles. I think I read that the Eagles basically started here. At the Troubadour. Santa Monica Boulevard, West Hollywood, California. Doug Weston's Troubadour. schedule of upcoming shows. Check it out, y'all. It's been around since, I believe, 1957. As we continue to head west towards the ocean down Santa Monica Boulevard, continue to walk with us in the footsteps of the Doors. Let's go! (9039) Beverly Boulevard. Currently it is Bristol Farms. It used to be Chasen's, which was a fancy West Hollywood restaurant where A-list Academy Awards after parties were held. And names such as Bogart, Sinatra, Reagan, Nixon, Hitchcock, Garbo, Monroe, Disney, all have been here. But right around 1974, Robbie Krieger, John Densmore, and the Butts Band had a release party here. But then shortly after that, they had another party of kind of putting things to end. And someone hired 3 men to run through the restaurant naked with the Butts Band scrawled right across their backsides. Right here at 9039 Beverly Boulevard, currently Bristol Farms, formerly Chasen's Family Restaurant. All right, y'all, heading west. Let's keep it going. (232) South Rodeo Drive. Ray Manzarek used to live here, keyboard player from the Doors. Lived here for a lot of years before moving to Napa. 2,900 square foot house, 4 bedroom, 3 bath, a pool, and a hot tub. Ray and Dorothy lived here for a lot of years before leaving Los Angeles and moving to Napa. All right, we're heading west to Santa Monica and Venice Beach. This was the Century Plaza Hotel at 2025 Avenue of the Stars. In 1971, Robbie's girlfriend Lynn and John's girlfriend Julia were driving down Sunset Boulevard, and a crazy driver in a Mercedes-Benz was all around them, stopped next to him at the stoplight, and it was Elvis Presley. They invited the girls to the Century Plaza Hotel for a party. And then 22 years later, in 1993, the Doors were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame right here at the Century Plaza Hotel, 2025 Avenue of the Stars. Let's keep rolling out to Santa Monica and Venice Beach. Santa Monica Boulevard and Sepulveda Boulevard. This is where the Snack-O-Rama used to be. It says it's on the corner of Santa Monica and Sepulveda, so it used to be either right there or this building behind me. So if you have any information, would be much appreciated. Back when Ray, Dorothy, and Jim were living out in the Venice and Santa Monica area, after Dorothy would go to work, Jim and Ray would drive her. And if they didn't have their usual breakfast of tea and English muffins with peanut butter and honey, they would go to the Snack-O-Rama. Sepulveda Boulevard. Right here, Santa Monica. Eggs, hash browns, whole wheat toast on a paper plate. Sometimes when Ray and Dorothy would go there, there'd be a humongous cinnamon roll. Cinnamon snail, they called it. coffee, and it was some good, honest food at a price that you don't even want to hear about today. Gotta live within your means. So Snack-O-Rama, right on the corner, Sepulveda and Santa Monica. So if you have any information specifically on which corner it was, don't think it's that over there, because that's Santa Monica and Greenfield Avenue goes in that direction. This is the Sepulveda side. So either that one or that one was the Snack-O-Rama in the late 60s. So let's keep going, and we're gonna head down to where the Lucky U Mexican restaurant used to be. Let's keep heading west towards the beach. Right here at this vacant lot, 11263 Santa Monica Boulevard, used to be the Lucky U, right across from the Newark Theater right there. The Lucky U was a hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant in the mid-late 1960s, and this was the place to eat for the students at the UCLA Film School. There was a bar on one side, restaurant on the other. Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, and their friends ate many meals here over the years. And after one of the band's first photo shoots with Bobby Klein, they finished the day off with dinner at the Lucky U. In 1969, after the Henry Diltz photo shoot for the Morrison Hotel cover, they came to the Lucky U. And when Jim was recording a poetry session at the Village Recorder on his 27th birthday, they took a break and ate at the Lucky U. Sadly, in January of 1972, the Lucky U was torn down to make way for the 405 freeway that you see right there. But if you find the historic Newark Theater right there, it's right across the street. I'm not sure what they're building here right now, but hopefully it's a restaurant. Maybe they're bringing back the Lucky U. That would be cool, wouldn't it? Bring back the Lucky U from the 60s. Mexican restaurant. Right here at the Lucky U, Rosario Carrillo was the chef, and he was a genius. His food was inspired. Chili Colorado, rich and succulent with beef and spices in a deep mahogany sauce. Chili Verde, his pork and tomatillo classic, light and green and fiery hot. He also put the Chili Verde on his burritos. Great. Rolled up flour tortilla tubes of frijoles and meat. The burritos were our main source of nourishment. For almost 2 years, his tacos were crisp and beefy. Tostadas were warm weather and luncheon fare. A mountain of salad atop Chili Verde. Refried beans, fried tortilla, ambrosia, and when you flush, well, chili rellenos. Sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly. The best they've had. Mexico City, La Paz, Cozumel, Cabo, San Lucas, Cancun, nowhere was better than Pancho's at the Lucky U, as he liked to be called, Pancho. Large, mild ancho chili stuffed with longhorn cheddar cheese, dipped in egg batter, fried on a large, short order grill, served slathered with chili verde and pork with a side of frijoles refritos. His wonderful Mexican Spanish fried rice. So this was it. 11263 Santa Monica Boulevard was the Lucky U Mexican restaurant. Now let's continue walking down Santa Monica Boulevard to the next stop. Let's go. 1616 Butler Avenue. It was right here in this building, December 8th, 1970, Jim Morrison's 27th birthday. He rented some studio time just to put some of his poetry on tape for a future project. Recording engineer John Haney, who had recorded Jim's earlier poetry session in 1969, also records this session. In attendance are Frank Lisiandro, Kathy Lisiandro, and friend Florentine Pabst, who listened to Jim read his poetry and participate in reading some sections. Frank also photographs this event. And the scene was also recreated in Oliver Stone's movie The Doors, with John Densmore playing the role of John Haney, where the engineer says, "Hey Jim, why aren't the Doors involved with this?" In the movie, that's John Densmore, the man, the myth, the legend, the drummer of the Doors. Had a short little part in that movie. The building itself was built in the 1920s as a Masonic temple. In the 1960s, it was used by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as his Los Angeles Center for Transcendental Meditation. It was then converted into a recording studio and was one of the first 24-track studios in Los Angeles. Although there have been major renovations since then, it is still the same state-of-the-art recording studio that Jim recorded in 55 years ago. According to the local lore, the village recorder is haunted by a ghost. The ghost supposedly roams the hallways at night, drinking leftover booze. There you can see the Masonic Temple. And this is a large building. So I don't know if this entire building was the village recorder or if it was just a small portion. That says the village right there, so that may be the entrance to the village recorder. That's pretty cool. So then this would have been the parking lot that Jim would have parked in if he drove, which he probably didn't. I know he had the Blue Lady for a period of time. But right here, whoever drove, they would have parked right in here. And Jim Morrison would have been walking exactly where I'm walking right now. On December 8th, 1970. The Village Recorder on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Butler at 1616 Butler Avenue. So we are going to continue heading west towards the beach. Let's go. Right here on Goshen Avenue in Santa Monica, in one of these apartments, Jim lived sometime around 65, 66, 67. We don't know exactly which apartment that Jim lived in. So if any of you have any information on the address that he lived or the apartment that he lived in, would be much appreciated, because we are driving down Goshen Avenue right now. And, you know, Ray and Dorothy, specifically Dorothy, would think that Jim was rich because he had an electric blanket and expensive socks. So it was somewhere on Goshen Avenue. We're coming across Barrington here. And still staying on Goshen. Because at some point here, one of these apartments was Jim Morrison's apartment. In the late 60s, Goshen Avenue. Close to the Lucky U, close to the Country Quarter, and not too far from the Santa Monica Pier and Venice Beach, which is where we're headed south right now, coming across Grande Avenue. Oh, all right, what's up? We're scooting. Jim Morrison's. Please comment. Jim Morrison's. So this is the one end of Goshen. To the other end of Goshen. I would think, anyway. Somewhere along here, I recorded Jim Morrison's apartment on Goshen Avenue. Alright. Maybe it was that one. Probably not, but you never know. Alright, y'all. We're heading to the pier soon. Let's roll. On the corner of Broadway and 2nd. This used to be Turkey Joint West. Ray, along with his brothers, had a residency at the Turkey Joint West called Rick and the Ravens, because it was Ray, Screamin' Ray Daniels, along with Rick Manzarek and Jim Manzarek. They had that residency here, 65, 66, maybe even a little bit before that, because this was before the Doors were formed. So this may have been early 1965 that Rick and the Ravens played here. And Ray's film buddies would always come down here and watch, including Jim. And Jim heckled Rick and the Ravens and kept screaming, "Play Louie Louie, play Louie Louie." So Screamin' Ray Daniels, Mr. Manzarek, invited him up on stage, and that was the first time that Ray Manzarek and Jim Morrison ever performed music together on stage. So this was, a very brief venue. In 1967, it was reopened under a new ownership as Garrison's, which featured live bands and go-go dancers. In 68, it changed hands once again and became the club the Broadway West, which closed its doors in 1973. At that point, it reopened as the vintage clothing store out of the past. Sadly, the building was demolished in the late 1980s, And now Wells Fargo sits here on the corner of Broadway and 2nd Street, which used to be 130 Turkey Joint West. And Dorothy Fujikawa would always joke, is there a Turkey Joint East? But that was the place where Jim Morrison first performed live on stage singing Louie Louie. So now we are going to head to the Santa Monica Pier in the Pacific Ocean. Let's go. Pacific Ocean, Santa Monica Pier. Jim Morrison was known to hang out under this pier, write poetry, write songs, and he actually started writing The End, which was a love song about his girlfriend slash ex-girlfriend, Mary Werblow. So back there a little bit further, where the sand is a little bit softer, a little bit drier, you can sit down. But now it is completely blocked off by fences and netting, so people cannot go back to where Jim was most likely sitting, writing songs, writing poetry, writing The End. This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end. So like I said, Jim started writing the song here as a love song, as a breakup song, you could also say. But then Jim and Robby got together at Robby's parents' house in the Pacific Palisades, and they continued to write The End. And then as they played that song at the London Fog and the Whiskey A Go-Go, it continued to evolve, get longer, and eventually, on August 21st, 1966, the Oedipal complex was inserted into that song. Father, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to love you. PG rated, or PG-13 anyway. So yeah, this is it. Right here, Jim Morrison. And Ray Manzarek even did a video where he explained a lot of the information that I just told you. So Ray Manzarek was under here, and Jim Morrison was under here a lot. So now, we're gonna head right over to the old Muscle Beach area where Jim and Ray used to work out in 65, 66 on the swings and the rings. Here we go. Santa Monica Beach, the original Muscle Beach. This is where Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek used to work out. 65, 66, when they were living down in this area. They would go from one end of these rings to the other end of the rings. And of course, they couldn't do it right away. It took some time to build up to that. You know, they would get their hands on one ring and try to swing to the next and couldn't even get to the second one. But they kept at it. And Jim would climb up those side posts, one hand over the next, Just all upper body strength. And that's why he was pretty ripped and shredded in 65, 66. Also, the fact that he was doing a lot of LSD and wasn't eating a whole lot, but he was also working out. So some of the pictures where you see him with some muscles and some abs, dude was in shape. But then the booze took over and the drugs took over, and then he wasn't such in good shape anymore. But it was right here on this beach. Summer of 65, 66. Like I said, when they were living in this area, they were on Fraser, Navy Street, Westminster for Jim, the beach house on North Star, and we're headed to all of those places. So stay tuned. That little hoopty-doopty. Oh, gotta be careful we don't get run over. We are on the bike path. So hey, right here, this is it. The original Muscle Beach. What are they gonna do on that little circle ring over there? Gonna do some acrobatics? Important star dancing? It's a song. Oh, here they go. What are they gonna do? I'm just here for the show, Billy. You must not see the show yet. Yeah, there you go. Welcome to California. You keep your head on a swivel and pay attention, or you're gonna miss a lot. Yeah, we should probably step on that side. Keep that path for the bikers. All right, we're heading south. Next stop is the Santa Monica Civic Center, the Auditorium, up on Main. We just gotta find some scooters. Let's go. Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. Right here in this building, the Doors played July 3rd, 1967. And that was right around the time Light My Fire became the #1 song in the country, in the world, in the universe. July 3rd. And there seems to be a lot of things happening on July 3rd. Most notably, Jim's death, 1971, July 3rd. Playing here, July 3rd, 1967. And some of the other locations even involve July 3rd. Can't remember off the top of my head, but keep watching, because this was a spot. And even once upon a time, Timothy O'Leary was here. And I believe it was out of Robby's book. I'm not 100%. Could have been Ray's, could have been John's. I read all three of them. But they were here with Timothy O'Leary sitting next to Timothy, on the stage, high on LSD. And that would have been around 65, 66. And then the Doors played here, 67, July 3rd. And now, we're going to head to Ray and Dorothy's on Fraser. Let's get a scooter and scoot our way. $154.50. Fraser. Right up the beach, which we'll head down there in just a minute. But it was here in 1965, specifically at 154.50, which is the apartment in the rear. Ray Manzarek, Dorothy Fujikawa lived here 1965. And then when Ray Manzarek and Jim Morrison ran into each other on the beach in the summer of 1965 after they had graduated from UCLA Film School, they moved in right here. Ray and Dorothy had already lived here. Jim joined them in the summer of 1965. And then even one of Ray's army buddies, I believe his name was Britt, moved in here as well. So one day when Ray went to pay the rent on that apartment in the rear, the landlord evicted them, saying, "You're only paying for 2 people to be living there, and you have 4 people. You have to leave." So on short-term notice, they had to find a place. And thankfully, they found a place I would say was much better than this at 1 North Star, which is the Doors Beach House, which we're going to head to in just a little while. But they had to move out of here late 65 down to the Doors Beach House. And then just a few years after that, Robby Krieger actually moved into 154 and a half. So, right back there, a lot of Doors history happened. And there's actually a story about one day where they went to a grocery store. You know, they wanted to grill. Beautiful weather, looking out over the beaches of Venice and Santa Monica. But they didn't have a whole lot of money because Dorothy was basically supporting them both. She was erasing computer tapes, something along those lines, so they didn't have money for steak. They had money for vegetables, for the potatoes, for the lettuce, but they didn't have money for the steak. Jim took care of it, though. And we're going to head up to that market in a little while here, and we'll tell you how Jim took care of those steaks. So now we're going to head straight down Fraser to the beach, where in the summer of 1965, Ray Manzarek and Jim Morrison randomly ran into each other after they graduated from UCLA Film School, and that's where the Doors began. So that's where we're headed. Let's go. We are now heading down Fraser. We're going to head over to Ocean Park over here, straight down Fraser, onto the beach. Fraser is right there. In the summer of 1965, Ray Manzarek walked straight down Fraser to the beach. And it was right here on this beach where the Doors began. So we're going to take a quick walk down there. Once again, Fraser, right up that way. Down there. Fraser Avenue, Santa Monica. That is where Ray Manzarek and Dorothy Fujikawa lived in the summer of 1965. Ray walked right down Fraser and walked straight out to the beach. I am walking basically the exact path that Ray Manzarek walked in 1965. July. Don't know the specific date. So if any of y'all know the specific date in July that Ray Manzarek walked down Fraser, down to the beach, definitely let me know. All I know was July 1965. Ray Manzarek walked this path. And I apologize if it gets a little shaky. We're walking in the sand. So this is right near the lifeguard tower number 25. Because we are literally walking straight towards the ocean from Fraser Avenue, where Ray Manzarek walked in the summer of 1965, just to come down here, relax, maybe meditate. And as you've noticed, this beach is huge. Santa Monica Pier is just to the north. Venice is just to the south. We're going to be heading in that direction in just a little while. But it was all the way out here at the break. There's another video of Ray Manzarek himself telling the story of what happened here in July of 1965. Because when Jim and Ray graduated from UCLA Film School in 1965, Jim told Ray he was going to New York. So when Ray was sitting right around here, don't know the exact specific location, but zooming in, Fraser is straight up the beach. So Ray Manzarek walked down here summer of 1965, and he's just sitting on the beach right here. And who comes walking down the beach but James Douglas Morrison? And Ray calls him over. He says, Jim, Jim. Jim walks over. Ray's like, hey, thought you were going to New York, man. And Jim's like, nah, I decided to stick around here. And Ray said, well, what have you been up to? And Jim said he was living on Dennis Jacobs' rooftop at 14 Westminster Avenue, having his dose of LSD, writing poems and writing songs. And Ray was like, songs? Sing me a song. So Jim kind of squats down, picks up some sand, Kind of lets the sand fall through his fingers a little bit. Maybe getting a little bit of courage because he was shy. And he started to sing Moonlight Drive. Let's swim to the moon. Let's climb to the tide. Penetrate the evening that the city sleeps too high. Let's swim out tonight, love. It's our turn to try. Park beside the ocean on our moonlight drive. And when Ray heard those lyrics, he said, "We gotta get a rock and roll band together. We're gonna make $1 million." Ray asked him if he had other songs. My eyes have seen you, and he starts singing, my eyes have seen you, and he starts pounding on his legs, my eyes have seen you. And then at that point, Rayman's Eric's like, hey, we got to get your stuff from Dennis Jacobs' rooftop, and we're going to move you right up there to 154 and a half Fraser. And at that point, the Doors began. And the name, The Doors. Albert Huxley, when the doors of perception are cleansed, they will appear to man as they truly are. Infinite. Ray thought that was pretty cool. So they became the Doors. Right here, somewhere very, very, very nearby, straight down from Fraser, Santa Monica Beach, Venice Beach. This is the place where the Doors began. So as we continue to head south, walk in the footsteps of the Doors. Let's go, Catfish Billy. Rock and roll. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. Warm my mind near your gentle stove. Turn me out in a wonder, baby. Stumbling in the neon groves. Olivia's Kitchen, 2618 Main Street, Santa Monica. Was right here. In this grassy knoll. And I've seen a lot of other videos where it says it's 2619. Right on the corner over there. I looked it up. I saw 2615. But I found an original picture of Olivia's Kitchen that says 2618. And this is the picture that I found at 2618. So based off of that picture that looks original, I'm gonna go with 2618 as the location of Olivia's Kitchen that was immortalized by the Doors song Soul Kitchen. Because Jim would come here often and just read, write poetry, eat some food, drink, hang out, until they literally kicked him out. That's why he wanted to sleep all night in the Soul Kitchen. And I will record over here as well. ZJ Boarding House says established 1988. So that is a possible location, but like I said, I found a photo that looked pretty original. It said 2618. And I do see the numbers over there now that says 2619 that are kind of broken and falling apart, but 2619 or 2618? Comment, let me know what you think is the location. I'm going with 2618. Catfish Billy, what are you going with?
2618.
All right, we got to go with the picture. Picture speaks 1,000 words, and a driverless car speaks a lot more than 1,000 words. All right, we're going to continue our journey as we walk in the footsteps of the doors. "2536 Beverly Avenue, Santa Monica. This is where John Densmore lived from 2002 to 2008. 1,500 square foot home. 4 bedroom, 4 bath. Not too much to see here. Pretty private. Built in 1912. And John Densmore, 2002 to 2008, lived right here. Walking in the footsteps of the Doors drummer. All right. 2536 Beverly Avenue. John Densmore, 2002 to 2008. Let's keep it rolling. On one of these 4 corners of Ocean Park in Lincoln is where Jim Morrison, Ray Manzarek, and Dorothy Fujikawa went to the grocery store. It may have been on that corner over there that is currently Gelson's. That looks like it's kind of a grocery store type of a place. In the summer of 1965, when Jim, Ray, and Dorothy were living at 154.5 Fraser Avenue, they wanted to grill some steaks, but they really did not have a whole lot of money because Dorothy was supporting Ray and Jim as they were starting the Doors while she was deleting computer files or something along those lines. Anyway, they went to the grocery store. We're gonna say it's that corner. And they grabbed potatoes, they grabbed some other vegetables, lettuce, and Jim's like, let me take care of the steaks. So he walks over, he's looking at the steaks, and he has kind of a longer trench coat jacket on, which is odd in July, August of 65. It's hot out. He walks over to where the steaks are. He's like, ooh, this one looks good, this one looks good, this one looks good. He grabbed all 3 of them, and as all 3 of them are walking towards the checkout, Jim is walking so close to Ray and Dorothy that they're wondering, why are you so close? What are you doing? Well, Jim was stuffing those steaks down his pants and covering them up with his jacket. And then they went back to Fraser Avenue and they fired him up. And it was one of the best meals, especially at a 5-finger discount, which I do not recommend, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So hey, right at the corner of Ocean Park in Lincoln is where the grocery store where Ray, Jim, and Dorothy went, where Jim infamously stole some steaks for a cookout overlooking Venice Beach. And now we're gonna head back towards that beach for more of the Doors. Walking in the footsteps.
Catfish Billy.
"42 Navy Street, Venice, California. While Ray Manzarek was a student at UCLA, he and his girlfriend Dorothy Fujikawa lived together in multiple apartments in the same area of Venice Beach. This is the second apartment they had together. They were both students at UCLA and had no income. The only money they had coming in was Ray's unemployment check after leaving the Army and $30 check from Dorothy's mother sent her each month. They decided to rent this fully furnished second-story apartment at 42 Navy Street with that money and still had a little left over for food. It was here that Ray would invite fellow UCLA film students, including Jim Morrison, to have get-togethers, listen to records, or just hang out and talk. Right before Ray's final year at UCLA, they would move out of this upstairs apartment over to 154 and a half Fraser. And right down Fraser is where Jim and Ray ran into each other and started the doors. So let's head down Navy to where the Pier used to be and to where the Cheetah Club once existed. Walking down Navy, straight to the Pacific. Doesn't get much better than this. Gonna check out where the Cheetah Club was. We are on Navy Street and Speedway. And as we spin around and head west towards the ocean, once upon a time, there was a pier that went out into the Pacific Ocean, and there was a club called the Cheetah Club. And the doors played at the Cheetah Club April 9th, May 14th, and August 27th of 1967. And the Cheetah Club was at 1 Navy Street. Which is straight out that way. Right up from Navy Street was the Cheetah Club, where the Doors played back in 1967. April 9th, May 14th, and August 27th. So hey, we're going to continue to head south, down the boardwalk, and see what we can see. It was right here on Dudley Avenue where the Venice West Cafe was. And this was a place where poets would read their works, jazz musicians would perform, and it was just a coffee house. 1958 to 1966 is when the Venice West Cafe existed right here. The cafe was in a commercial district, and it has storefronts on Oceanfront Walk as well. Currently, we have Ramen 5 Go and the Dudley Market. But back in 1965, 1966, this was a place, a coffee house for poetry and for jazz musicians. Jim loved it, as well as the other guys in the Doors. Let's head back down to the boardwalk and continue our journey south. Walk in the footsteps of the Doors. "15 Paloma Avenue." Singing in the old bars, swinging with the old stars, living for the fame. There's a Marina Del Ray right there. But we're here because of Jim Morrison. He used to stay here in room 205. Right around 65, 66. Room 205. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get in, but we can take a little peek of where Jim Morrison would have walked in the mid to late 1960s. And there is a mural of Jim on the other side of this building. Not to be confused with the mural at 18th and Speedway, which we're heading to in just a little bit. But this mural is by artist Jonas Never. It's the entire side of the building, as you'll see in just a little bit here. It is replicating the famous young lion photo. But unlike the Speedway mural, you can get up close and have your photo taken with this one, which I'm about to do in just a little bit here. And the Ellison also has Lana Del Rey, as you saw, John Hurt, and Marilyn Monroe. But as we come around to the other side of the building here, you'll see Marilyn Monroe first. And then right over here is Jim Morrison. Try to set the night on fire. Yeah. All right, y'all. Take some selfies with that. And it looks a little something like this. And now we will continue to head south, walking in the footsteps of the Doors. Brooks Avenue. Currently says 26, but this was the location where the Doors shot some photos during the Morrison Hotel era, right around 1970. This one was a white garage door on which was written, I think, I know the reason, but I can't spell it. The original garage door survived until 2018, until the front was replaced by a glass/steel window further down the street, right up this way, is another location that they stopped to take a look at, which is 50 Brook Avenue. And I can already see from here that it has been painted over. But back in 1970, there was a mural that had a Coca-Cola bottle or can or emblem right on the side of this building, which now looks like there is a woman painting on there that's, I don't know, doing karate. So that is sad. All of that has been painted over. But I am glad that I was here April 2019 and also December 2016. So I was able to get a picture in front of it when it still had the Coca-Cola bottle on there, and it looks a little something like this. So the mural that was painted here faded over the years and was restored in the mid-2000s. But then in 2018, the mural was vandalized and destroyed. So the property owners put up an iron gate, as you see in front of me here, to keep the people out. But that didn't keep out the vandals. So hopefully one day the mural can be restored, be respected, and exist for future generations to destroy. Not destroy, but enjoy. And when the Doors took photos here, they had a little green Martian. They had the head, the torso, the legs, and they just took some weird photos. It was fun. They had a good time. You could tell. So here's some of those photos that they took here back in 1970. And now we're gonna head back down to the boardwalk and head south. Let's go. "14 Westminster Avenue. This is where Jim Morrison lived in the summer of 1965 on Dennis Jacobs' rooftop. He slept up there the majority of the time. He only really came down into the apartment to eat, to bathe. But the majority of the time he was just kind of hanging out on the rooftop, experimenting with LSD. And he would see a concert in his head. And within that concert, it included the songs My Eyes Have Seen You, Summer's Almost Gone, Hello, I Love You, Moonlight Drive, Go Insane, Break On Through, Soul Kitchen, Strange Days, End of the Night, You Make Me Real, and Cars Hiss By My Window. It all happened right here on that rooftop in the summer of 1965. But then as soon as Ray and Jim randomly ran into each other on Venice Beach, and Jim sang a couple of those songs, Jim left 14 Westminster Avenue and he moved in with Ray and Dorothy at 154 and a half Fraser Avenue. And the owner of this building is a Doors fan, as it has been named the Morrison Apartments, single and one bedroom apartments. I might have to call. Just kidding. But let's take a walk around the side here and see if there's anything else that we can see that would give us a little bit more information about Jim Morrison. I'm sure he probably did walk through that front door that we just looked at a minute ago. But if I remember correctly, there is a fire escape. So it is very, very possible. You know, that one looks like maybe it went into number 1. That one maybe went into number 2. Top one, number 3. If that's how it goes here. So I don't know exactly which one Dennis Jacob lived in. So if anybody watching this knows which unit Dennis Jacob lived in, I would say it was the top one. Because that, I would think, would give Jim more access to the roof. There's one down into the basement. So right here, the summer of '65 is where Jim Morrison lived. And at this time, with all of the LSD that he was doing, wasn't really eating a whole lot. So he lost some weight. So when he ran into Ray Manzarek on the beach in July of '65, Ray barely recognized him. But it was a good thing he did, because that's when the Doors began. Summer of '65. Very possible Jim Morrison walked up those stairs. And now we're going to continue down Speedway. We're going to check out the mural. We're going to check out the Doors Beach House and see what else there is to see. Let's go. As we're walking around Venice Beach, we came across this wall that has this quote from Jim Morrison. Now the soft parade has soon begun. Cool pools from a tired land sink now in the peace of evening. Jim Morrison. This is the #1 mural of Jim Morrison in Venice. Speedway and 18th. Originally, 1991 is when this was created by Art Kronk. And it had a lot less detail on Jim, and it had more of a blue background. So when this was restored in 2012, more detail was given to Jim. And the sunset background was also added in as well. So this is literally the entire side of the building, giving tribute to the Lizard King, because he can do anything. For all Doors fans traveling to Venice, this is definitely a must-see. Once again, this is on Speedway and 18th. Venice Beach, California. Art Kronk did a beautiful job. Y'all need to come here and check it out. And now we continue to head south, walking in the footsteps of the Doors. We are now in the Venice Canals. Venice, California, that is. And right here at what was previously 201 Sherman Canal was a cottage that Jim Morrison lived in during the mid-60s. There is a driver's license that has this address, that has his photo. But the cottage no longer exists. It's just an empty lot. And that lot is probably now part of the yard of that house. But back in the mid-60s, right here on this spot was 201 Sherman Canal, where Jim Morrison lived for a period of time. I don't know who he lived with here, so if you have any information of who Jim Morrison lived with at 201 Sherman Canal, feel free to comment and let me know. And as we continue walking along the Venice canals here in California, we will come to a location that was used in the 1991 movie The Doors, directed by Oliver Stone. Right on the other side of the canal here at 212 Sherman Canal is the house that was used in the movie. You can recognize it by that tree, but that house is being remodeled beyond recognition. It's not even close to the same that it was back in 1991. And we are standing in the exact spot that Val Kilmer was standing in when he was quote unquote stalking Pamela Corson from the Venice boardwalk, which is completely inaccurate, I may add, because Jim did not know Pam in 1965. He did not stalk her back to her house, climb up that tree and into her bedroom window. That did not happen because Jim and Pam did not meet until 1966 at the London Fog. But this is the spot. Let's take a walk over there, over the bridge, over the canals. And these are the same canals that not just Jim Morrison, but all of the Doors would walk around. And Jim specifically. And Ray, they all did LSD at one time or another. In one of their books, it was said that they never did LSD together, all four of them. And this is that tree that you see. Very unique tree that has gotten much larger since 1991. But right here is the location of the house that was used in the Doors movie, 1991. And I say this is the location of the house because this house looks nothing like the house that was in the Doors movie. So we will continue walking through these Venice canals in the footsteps of the Doors. There was another spot over here, actually, that we learned from a wonderful woman named Linda, who has lived in this area for a long period of time. She was not here when Jim Morrison and the Doors were here, but she was very knowledgeable, gave us some great information of not only 201 Sherman Canal right over there, but more information about that house that was used in the Doors movie. But right over here on the other side of the canal, right in this area here, there's a photo with all four of the Doors with some children. Not sure whose kids they are. Maybe they're just some local kids that lived in the area. But here is a photo of the Doors with some children. All right. We can continue walking this way. And we're going to head to the next stop. And we're getting towards the end, y'all. So if you're still watching, we definitely appreciate you. Like and subscribe. Share this with your friends, especially your friends that are fans of the Doors. So as we walk out of the canals, we're going to walk past the house slash the property, the area the Doors movie was filmed. But like Linda said, this house is being renovated and remodeled beyond recognition. It doesn't look anything like it did in 1991. There it is, 212 Sherman Canal. That was the house used in the 1991 movie titled The Doors with Val Kilmer, directed by Oliver Stone. So let's continue to walk in the footsteps of the Doors as we head south towards the Doors Beach House. Let's go. Right here at the Hinano Cafe in Venice, California, 15 Washington Avenue. This is a place that Jim would come to right around 1969 with Bvld. And they would say once you walk in, you would see why Jim liked this place so much. And not a whole lot has changed. Still here, Hinano Cafe, from 1969 when Jim was here with Bvld. So we're gonna head in there, we're gonna check it out. We might even have to grab a little bite to eat. And maybe a cold beverage in honor of Jim. All you Doors fans need to check out the Hinano Cafe at 15 Washington Avenue. And there's a liquor market right next to it, and I don't know if that was there in 1969, but if it was, I'm sure Jim was in there too. So hey, let's go in, check it out. Excuse me.
Maybe like Pacific? Sure. How many glasses?
This is 1600 South Harbor Drive, otherwise known as the Venice Beach Pier. Doors were around this area, photo shoots. Unknown Soldier was more shot towards the Santa Monica Pier, possibly the Navy Street Pier. So if any of you know specifically where the Unknown Soldier videos were shot, where Jim is tied to a wooden post, so I know this is not the location of the Unknown Soldier video, but there were photo shoots all over this area. And looking south, we're gonna head down to the Doors Beach House at 1 North Star, Marina Del Ray, which no longer exists, but we'll show you where it did exist once upon a time, back mid to late 60s. We're almost to the end, y'all. It's about time to wrap it up. Couple more locations. In the Doors locations video will be concluded. So here we are at the Venice Beach Fishing Pier. We're going to continue heading south all the way to the airport. So hey, keep walking with us, because we are currently in the footsteps of the Doors. Alright, y'all, we are at one of the last stops on this Doors tour. This one brings us to 1 North Star, which is on the corner of North Star and Speedway. Back in 1965, in the early 66, this was the Doors Beach House, which is no longer, as you can see. It was torn down, but the Doors Beach House was an old craftsman-style 2-story house on a huge lot, literally right here on the sand. Look at that sunset. We couldn't end this video any more perfect than that. You know, the Doors rented the downstairs apartment so they could rehearse, and Ray convinced each band member to pitch in for rent and also convinced them that Ray and Dorothy should live here. And the last part didn't really go over well with everyone, but at least they had a great place to rehearse on the beach. The landlord lived in the upper unit and was never home during the day, so the Doors could rehearse all day, play as loud as they wanted. The entire space was basically a giant sunroom with wall-to-wall windows and wood floors. And these are some of the views and some of the pictures of the Doors and those windows. It had a small bedroom in here, bathroom, kitchen in the back, and the rent was $200 a month. Ray and Dorothy paid $100, and they convinced John, Jim, and Robby to pay the remaining $100. Which at first, John wasn't too happy about that, but once he did the math and figured out it was only about $33 a person, he realized that it really wasn't so bad after all. So the doors of the main room opened literally right here onto the sand. And most likely this sidewalk did not exist back in 1965. So this is where they practiced during the day, and then they played their gigs at the house as the house band at the London Fog. So they were here late 65, early 66. And after one practice session, Jim Morrison told the group members to each go home and write a song. A few days later, Robby Krieger was excited to play the first song he had ever written. The first song Robby Krieger ever wrote was Light My Fire, which went to #1 in July of 1967. So it was right here, 1 North Star Avenue, Marina Del Ray, California, where the Doors Beach House. Right on the sand. Doesn't get much better than that. Sunsets are beautiful. Location is amazing. So hey, the last stop on this Doors tour is the LAX airport. Not very exciting, I know. But with all the tours that the Doors did, the concerts that they played around the country, around the world, not so much the world, but Europe in '68, they were at the airport hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. For Jim, it was probably hundreds of times, since he was only with us for a short period of time. But for Ray, John, and Robby, I'm sure they've probably been to LAX thousands of times. So it is right here. The Doors Beach House was. And this is what it looked like back in 1966. And as you see in that picture, just to the south right here was that big oil rig that kept on pumping. So hey, we're gonna keep on pumping too. Finish it strong as we continue to walk in the footsteps of the Doors. Let's go. Here we are on the last stop of our journey with the Doors. We're at the Los Angeles International Airport, where the members of the Doors were here hundreds, if not thousands of times. Flying to New York, to San Francisco, to Europe, to Chicago, to Minneapolis, to Miami, all over the country, all over Europe. This is where the Doors would fly out of and fly into. So as we end this journey, we just want to thank you in walking with us in the footsteps of the Doors. Please subscribe and share it with all your friends that love the Doors.
Tie-dye traveling guy.
Yes, sir. Catfish Billy. Peace out, y'all.
This is the best part.